I feel completely confident that Disney, will take good care of the franchise I've built. Kathy and I have been working on future Star Wars films, and the main reason I brought Kathy on is rather than quit, I wanted to have it move forward, but I needed somebody I trusted who could take that franchise and make it work the way I intended it to. We've, got a plan for 7, 8, and 9, which is the end of the trilogy, and other films also.
The purpose of this video is not to step on the other creators who have worked under Star Wars. When I refer to Favreau and Filoni being truly passionate, having a vision, giving a crap and such, I'm not saying the other creators don't give it their all and don't care. I'm simply exploring how these aspects can go into making a script and story that feels closer to George Lucas's vision, written in a style that feels akin to his own. Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are the perfect people to craft the future of Star Wars. Not only do they deliver consistently wonderful stories filled with memorable characters, lines, locations, and such, but they clearly put a great amount of planning into it.
Who's that? We don't know. Mystery box,
Not to worry, we are still flying half a ship.
Ever since these guys helmed projects at Disney-owned Lucasfilm, things have noticeably increased in quality. Dave Filoni in particular is a star player when it comes to managing the Star Wars timeline and getting things right. Having worked with Lucasfilm since the early days of the Clone Wars, his sheer amount of knowledge has undeniably helped keep things consistent from project to project. There's genuine passion for the lore and movies, and understanding how these function makes the opposite of a corporate-made trilogy.
Yes, I'm a huge fan, but, this is his universe. He created it. It's never been about what am I going to bring to this or what can I put into Star Wars. It's always, this is something that's wonderful and it works beautifully. How do I learn what makes it special?
Teaming up with Jon Favreau, who has been there since the rise of Filoni, they take the style and care George Lucas has instilled in them since Clone Wars and translate it wonderfully into live action. Because both creators were mentored by the man himself, it's no surprise that when they finally got involved in the Lucasfilm Disney era, things quickly felt like Star Wars again. They work by laying down the bones of the story first and applying the Star Wars look second, the complete opposite approach to how the sequels look to be made.
I think it's too much.
Carrying this into the TV adventures collectively dubbed the Mandoverse or Filoniverse, Star Wars in this medium feels like a close blood relative of the original movies. Especially with Mandalorian, it has a beating heart again. Finally, after what felt like so long, Star Wars feels like Star Wars again.
JJ, what happened to Darth Vader's grandchildren?
You tell me, man.
Planning is one of the best tools that Jon and Dave use when crafting the Mandoverse. They don't just write willy-nilly and come up with the next episode on the spot, but actually have a trajectory that they are following and sticking to. It's been said many times before, but here it is again. How can you put millions of dollars into a new trilogy without having a plan? Seriously.
Do you feel like that trilogy would have benefited from planning out a very strict 3-movie story from the very beginning?
I've been involved in a number of projects that have...
My name is on those movies. I had a plan, I just forgot to share. Why did I agree to come back? Pain. What was that middle movie? Episode 9 had several working edits. Regret. I went the time stone.
Wait a minute. How did this happen? We're smarter than this.
Thankfully, a new team means new ideas. Sure, there may be the same executives involved, but the creative process is mainly under the care of the showrunners. Even though there are 2 primary minds involved, like in the case of the sequel trilogy, the difference between this duo and this duo is that one pair shares the same vision. JJ and Ryan work well together because they have the same end goals, combined efforts, and... oh wait, wrong universe. And this is where teamwork is incredibly important. Compromising ideas to make a story that not only works for both creators, but also the fans. Jon and Dave work towards the same end goal and bring us Star Wars stories that feel new, yet somehow familiar. Focusing on a post-Return of the Jedi age is a wonderful place to be in. This is a time that hasn't really been explored much outside of the comics, and poses an interesting new dynamic with splinter groups, loyal remnants, mercenaries, and the new order of things.
Worden ze neerfeesten? Wel, we gaan er vandaag vanuit dat dat evenementen zijn die terug zullen kunnen doen.
This transition period idea worked really well for The Bad Batch, which has a phenomenal first episode. But for post-Empire, exploring this with the stoic warrior and his isn't the first lens I'd imagine to see this era through, but it works incredibly well because the team behind it had a clear focus. Working with the core themes of Star Wars, family, hope, and friendships, and using them as the DNA for new projects helps capture the spirit of George Lucas's world.
I said all I wanted to do was tell a story of what happened. It started here and it went there, and it's all about generations, and it's about, the issues of fathers and sons and grandfathers, and it's a family soap opera. I mean, ultimately. I mean, we call it space opera, but people don't realize it's actually a soap opera. Yeah. And it's all about family problems and it's not about spaceships.
Those were the main threads that George had established. That's what the Filoniverse is working with. The Bad Batch, Clone Wars, Mandalorian, and the Sand People portion of Book of Boba, they all feel like Star Wars because they orbit around these themes. I assume Rebels does this too, but I just haven't watched it yet. Now, if JJ and Ryan agreed to set up hints to Rey's link to Palpatine, it would feel like it was there all along, and we'd be a step closer to what Star Wars is. Having Kylo see her use Force lightning and then later say, "You are a Palpatine," is not woven into the fabric of the narrative. Like, this feels so last minute and non-planned that you could kind of put it anywhere. You are a Palpatine. Okay. As strange as this analogy is, when it comes to laying out their timeline, I've come to realize that John and Dave are like a good pair of sneakers. They're always one step ahead of each other, but end up in the same place by the end of the journey. As in, they operate on the same wavelength and can afford to add to or run past each other's ideas, because they know they're working towards the same result in the end. Being a writer and a creator myself, I'd absolutely love to see their process firsthand. See how they take ideas that inspire George Lucas like westerns and samurai films, and craft them into new stories that add to the galaxy.
What I originally pitched when I went in, I said, look, I don't want to be influenced so much by Star Wars. You know, we definitely want to be consistent with Star Wars, but I want to be influenced by the stuff that influenced George. So let's really look at the samurai movies. Let's really look at Kurosawa films.
John, Dave, I tip my cowboy hat to you.
Let the past die. Kill it if you have to.
It's not the Jedi way.
The one thing that was clear with the sequel trilogy was the disregard and disassociation from the prequels. You can tell by how JJ references one series over the other, basically the entirety of The Force Awakens, that he doesn't care as much to mention what came before, as in Anakin's turn to the dark side, the corruption from within, Anakin's dark deeds, and Palpatine's rise to power. However, existing in The Last Jedi, Hermit Luke mentions this to Rey.
At the height of their powers, they allowed Darth Sidious to rise, create the Empire, and wipe them out.
This is the most prequel ties we ever get. Regardless of how the creators view the prequels, they are still a part of the galaxy's history, the Skywalker history. Everything from the Battle of Geonosis to
do it. I shouldn't. Do it, do it, do it.
Still happened. Even if the execution is wooden or clunky in certain aspects, the story is still there. There's still a beating heart below all those awkward lines and strange concepts. When you look past the awkward dialogue and stuff, you're actually left with a dang good story that has a clear vision straight from Episode 1. Working on the Clone Wars, it's apparent that Dave Filoni embraced these movies. He didn't try to change what happened, but instead worked to enhance it. On a simple level, it's like how Book of Boba explored the bond between Master and Rancor, or even the Sand People and their traditions. It adds a greater depth to pre-existing ideas. Was it necessary? No, not really, but it helps give the world more vibrancy and lore and enhances the main storyline while reminding us that it's still a part of a bigger picture. When you fully embrace the past like Filoni and Favreau have been doing, you can get beautiful moments like this.
That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about. Woo!
Mando went from a spacious bus to a pimped-up space corvette. We got to hear the roar of the N1 starfighter again, ride into Beggar's Canyon from Episode 1, and see two iconic ships side by side. He even tries spinning because we all know that's a good trick.
Now this is pod racing.
That's why the future of the Filoniverse is so exciting, especially with the Kenobi series on the way. John and Dave aren't afraid to reference the past. They don't want it to die. They sprinkle in bits of history here and there to remind you that much has happened to get to this point. By mentioning the past, through dialogue or an object, it all feels interconnected and part of one beautiful universe, one that people can escape to and actually watch progress. And with 7-episode seasons and a 40-something runtime, the Mandoverse has more foot room to really add to the world. Thanks to the early seasons of Clone Wars, they were able to iron out all the rocky concepts and find their footing.
It's the
Jedi.
Release the Senator!
That Jedi is going to attack.
My, how far Filoni has come.
It's all a lot of simple tricks and nonsense.
Liar!
The team behind the Filoniverse is legitimately enthusiastic about what they're making, and it really shows. Not just in the interviews and bonus features, but the end result itself. From the early episodes of Mando, genuine passion for their work ooze onto screen. So much, in fact, that during my rewatch of seasons 1 and 2, the ooze often took me out of the story. Not because it trailed onto the floor and stained my rug or anything, but because of how cool the production side really was. Not just the volume itself, but the creative team working with the physical elements. For instance, they already had a digital version of the Razor Crest to add into the shots. However, Jon Favreau wanted a detailed model for lighting reference. But guess what? The model looks so convincing that they decided to go old school and film the miniature. Yeah, a lot of these shots were done with a physical model. Adds another cavern of depth after you realize how much hard work and care was put into the show. I'll leave a link to this featurette in the description for those interested. It's pretty neat. Seeing that everyone brought their A-game helps make the narrative that much better. This isn't just another job for these guys. This is their life. They give a crap. When the model makers to the CG artists and writers give it their all, everything becomes so incredible. It's like what happened with Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy. That feeling of true, undeniable quality. Those 12 plus hours behind the scenes convey the genuine passionate energy can fill any project with far more substance than a casual team ever could. So much so that Return of the King went out collecting Oscars like they were Infinity Stones. Compare that to the Hobbit trilogy that felt unplanned in several areas and really needed a good 3 years to plan and prep everything. It's really a shame when the early drafts are used as final scripts, because the mediocrity dilutes everyone's hard work regardless of how much passion they put into it. The great music, great casting, great props, it all becomes second to the narrative they support. If the end result is okay, everything else feels stretched thin. Kinda like margarine scraped over too much rye. Revisiting something like Star Wars, which comes with a high fan expectation, is undoubtedly really daunting. When you want to make a new edition that feels like it belongs, it's easy to fall back to what we've seen before and what already worked. But what John and Dave understand is not only the formula to create a new story, but the difference between pure nostalgia versus nostalgic function. Favreau and Filoni take things from the past and give them purpose beyond a throwaway reference. This isn't just the training droid from the Millennium Falcon. This is the tool that helped Grogu reconnect with his abilities. This isn't just the Darksaber from the Clone Wars. This is the reason why Bo-Katan and Mando stand on uneven ground. This isn't just Luke Skywalker. This is the Jedi that truly represents Grogu's people. This isn't just a bantha. This is... never mind. Yeah, this just really is a bantha. The biggest downfall of many high-budget projects isn't always the writing, but the studio that produces results at a factory pace. Filmmaking isn't just another way to entertain and make money. It's also an art form. If passionate creators really have time to iron out the kinks of their story, then the end result is almost guaranteed to be great. Passion is something that can't be taught. Either it exists, or it doesn't. In these gentlemen and their team, it definitely does. And when you combine their efforts to focus on a clear vision, you get things as great as The Mandalorian. Not too full of references that it can't stand without them, but not too devoid of familiarity that it doesn't connect with the same galaxy. It's like I said before, John and Dave are like a good pair of sneakers. They're always one step ahead of each other, but end up in the same place by the end of the journey. Please like this video if you like this video. Become a member of the Star Council by subscribing, and check out my other content for more. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.